So it's Jamie Baker Orr here with Joe O Brien with Mobile Shredders. We're just going to ask Joe about his business and when did you get started and what motivated you to do this?
Yeah, we were actually started in 2004. So now we've been almost 16 years next year. But we started it based on my partners and partners now are Julie and Lawrence and I. Lawrence being a general practitioner doctor with a very good practice, and we literally had been neighbors for years. And he came to me one time, literally back in 2003, and wanted to know if I would be interested in investing in a different type of business. And I've been always in the real estate development world, been there for 30 plus years, but was looking for another opportunity. And so what I did was we kind of talked a little bit about it, and he mentioned that he thought there'd be a need for companies or businesses that need to get rid of their confidential documents.
Right.
So what we did was we actually, I thought a little bit about it, and I said this could be something that had a tremendous opportunity. And I started looking into it, and I said, well, I'm kind of always been my own businessman, entrepreneur, but also thought that there had to be other shredding companies out there at that time, which there really wasn't. However, we ran into, and again, back then I think I Googled shredding and came up with this company that was out of Spartansburg, South Carolina. And the company had been one of the fastest growing shredding companies in the United States. It was in the top 5 Fortune 500, and it was these two individual guys that were just, to me, very interesting. And so Lawrence and myself, Julie and my wife, Kelly, decided that we ought to go meet these guys. Mm-hmm. And then we literally went to one of the first national conventions for information destruction in San Diego, California. And I tell this story because it's very interesting, because these guys were literally almost, I wouldn't say carbon copies of myself and Lawrence, but they were two entrepreneurs that put this company together, and they had said they were going to be at this national convention. We're continuing to be in our business, right?
Right.
I'm a developer, and Lawrence is a general practitioner, doctor. We didn't have a lot of time, but we said, why don't we go down there for the weekend and talk to these guys?
Right.
So we literally went down and met these two gentlemen, and with our wives. And I guess the idea to be here in Pueblo, Colorado was born because we started talking to these guys, and what they basically told us, here's what you should do and here's what you shouldn't do in having a shredding company. They had since, after that time period, gone on to create a shred school. They literally, in the United States, now they're out of it now, but when they first started, they were getting ready, selling their company to another bigger company.
Wow.
And they started doing this shredding business, shredding school.
Right.
So a young person or old person, whatever, anybody that might be interested in trying to create or start a startup shredding company would go to these guys, and they would have a school for about, 2-3 weeks, and literally tell you how to start a shredding business. So we took that and we brought it back, our idea, and literally that's how the company started. We started in 2004, and we literally, one of the things they always said is don't buy a used truck, don't buy a used shredder, and this is a mobile operation, so we go to people's businesses, and that was the key. You said you want to have a truck, you want to have a brand new truck, and that's how you should get started, which we did, and our first truck was $250,000.
Wow.
So it wasn't one of these like a pickup truck and you're starting out and running around grabbing paper.
Right.
We had to do had to make a sizable investment, but we did, and that's really how we got started.
Right. It's amazing because when you say mobile, you go everywhere, and then we were talking about shredding events because we have one every year for our clients or our clients' friends or family. They're always welcome to come. And I think now with the age of, we have to save everything for so long. So like in state contracts, we have to save them for 4 years. You can't just get rid of that information. So you have to store it, and then when that 4th year is up is when we end up shredding it, which, last year we did 220 contracts. So there was a lot of shredding going on, when you look at that kind of investment or money, and everybody wants that to be safe. So some of the businesses, we talk about my small business, but you were mentioning earlier when you and I were talking before the interview, that you had some other big companies. So what do those companies look like?
Well, and again, we really did start out with our concentration on with small businesses, and that small businesses it's kind of how you look at things. But initially, we thought it'd be the ones that you would think about are the hospitals, or small insurance companies, or title companies. Real
Right.
estate title. One of our first clients, because I had done a lot of business with Stewart Title,
Right.
was Stewart Title of Pueblo. And those kind of again, were not necessarily the kind of companies that normally you would think of, but it was, at least we kind of went to our family and friends,
Right.
and thought that, well, we have this service, would you like to have us do it for you? So but what has evolved as we have developed over the years, there's still a tremendous amount of our business is a 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 person office, not necessarily what a doctor's office. Could be insurance, could be just regular businesses that are all over southern Colorado. One of the things that we made a conscious effort from our marketing standpoint was that we would concentrate on what we call rural areas for shredding. And the reason for that was, again, our gentleman from South Carolina. If you've ever been to Spartansburg, South Carolina, it's got a population of about 8,000 people.
Oh, wow.
And they had one of the largest shredding company that they sold as a public company, or a private company to a public company. But and they did all their clientele started out being in all these different rural areas of South Carolina.
Right.
Now, they went into Atlanta at some point, and they went into some of these other bigger cities. So we thought we'd use the same model. So we started going, literally all the way out to Lamar, down to Trinidad, into Raton, New Mexico, over into Alamosa, up into the mountains, up into Buena Vista, and then, and again, also started in Pueblo. So we really, have our bases here.
Right.
So we have most of our companies that are here, or businesses are here, but also then into Colorado Springs. But the idea was that our biggest competition, much like in the, I kind of use it in the trash hauling world. It's very similar in the sense that there's the very, very big companies,
Right.
like Waste Management. They're also in the shredding business as well. But there's companies like Iron Mountain that you might have heard of, and Shred It, which is now Stericycle. But some of these very large document destruction companies don't go into the rural areas. But as we've kind of progressed and we've gotten better at what we do, we've been able to compete with them. And not just on a price situation, but on a service situation, or whatever it might be. So our look is a little different now. Some of our companies, and again, there's some larger companies. I just mentioned we do Bechtel out at our Pueblo Chemical Depot. They're they're in the process of doing all the chemical destruction, but they're one of the largest companies in the world. We're doing all their shredding for them. We're also doing we do Parkview Hospital here locally. We do the Fort Carson Hospital in Fort Carson. We also do other parts of Fort Carson, which require a lot of federal contracting, which is a whole other ballgame.
Right.
And it's very difficult. But we've been able to figure out how to do that. So we've taken it where, yes, we still have a tremendous amount of small business that you might think of, 1 to 3, 1 to 4 people offices, up to companies that are very large, but we've been able to do the scaling up to be able to do that. And we do the county, Pueblo County. We do CSU Pueblo. So, a lot of those things, as you do scale, you can scale up to those.
Right.
And that's what we
right.
do.
It's a progress. Yeah, everything, one bite at a time is what I tell people. Everybody like to sell, 220 units a year. Who wouldn't, right? But you have to work up to that. It just doesn't come overnight. So that's great. I love Pueblo for that reason when you say our hometown, because there are so many people that want to help you do better. Like when you start a new business, it's pretty exciting to be able to go to our friends. Like you and I have known each other. We were thinking about that earlier. I think it's been about 14 years when both of us in the real estate business, and I actually started working with Joe in a development that we were selling out in for him. He's actually the developer, and I went in and helped him sell some of the property. So it was a really exciting time. So we'll talk about how many trees are you, so how much are you saving? So how much are you recycling, and basically how many trees is that saving a year?
Well, that's a good question, and I think it's an important one. And I say that because, one of the things that we decided when we got into this business, we knew we were gonna have to destroy the paper, right?
Right.
And there's a process to that. We have what we call onboard mobile shredders in our truck. So now we're up to 5 trucks. We have an awful lot of paper. And one of the first questions someone might ask is, what do you do with all the paper?
Right.
And I think that's a key part of our customers and their satisfaction is that every single bit of paper that we shred goes into the recycling, or is 100% recycling, which means it goes back into the paper system. And what I mean by that is that we take the paper, we get it from a business, we bring it back to our warehouse, and we shred it, and then, it's already shredded on our trucks, but we also can do it here. We actually bale it here, put it into bales, and then we ship it out the front door, I call it, back to into the system, which goes to paper mills for paper product. And a lot of people ask me, well, what kind of paper can you do? We can do just about any paper, and what I mean by that, it can have staples in it. It can have, you have the file paper, which is a little thicker. You have various other things, but basically they call that a SOP, or a standard office product. But that being said, it has to be about, I think, 98% of that type of paper. But in a given year, and I'll just use some numbers from last year, in between that last year and all of 2018 and all of 2019 so far, which we have 1 month left.
Right.
We actually recycled over 8 million pounds of paper.
Wow.
That equates to, and I have to read it because I can't remember these numbers, but that's 68,520 trees,
Wow.
1,531,625 gallons of oil, 28,214,151 gallons of water, 19,346,846,000 kilowatt hours of energy, and saving over 403,000 cubic yards of landfill.
Wow.
So this is a report that comes out actually from the EPA. They can take the amount of paper that we give, it's a report.
Right.
But it is a legitimate report. It comes from the Environmental Protection Agency, and that gives you an idea of now what we do in volume.
Right.
We started doing it in 2008. Since we've started, and I'll just rough the numbers, I don't want to bore you with the details, but it's 260,000 trees, 5.8 million gallons of oil, 107 million gallons of water, 73 million kilowatt hours of energy, and over 1.5 cubic yards of landfill.
Wow.
So it is big.
And it makes a difference, because a lot of times when you are recycling, you don't think the small things, because we have one of your kiosks in our office that we dump stuff in, and we'll fill it up probably, I think it's every 2 weeks or once a month, and you don't realize how every little bit makes such a huge difference.
And that's a good point too, because when we first started, we really didn't think that this would be a kind of a part of our business plan. And
Okay, what's your mobile number?
our whole company investment, or our startup part, was, we knew how to run a business in a sense, but we didn't quite know what the benefits could be of the recycling, or from a financial standpoint. So we basically didn't plan our growth on that recycling aspect, and we still don't, even though it's a very large part of our business now. When we first started, our business plan was based on just getting customers, getting them to recycle,
Right.
or taking and shredding their paper, and now it's become pretty much a very important part of our business, even though it's like initially wasn't part of the business plan, because there wasn't enough volume.
Right.
So every little bit does help. You gotta realize it's taken us, a little bit like almost 13 years to get to this point.
Right.
But the point being is that every little bit does help. Landfills are saved, energy is saved, as we all know. Energy costs are continuing to go up. But it's a nice plan, and we know that it goes from here to a particular paper mill. So we know it goes back in the system.
Right.
But we do, one of our, good things, I think, from our perspective, is that we give every single customer a copy of a destruction certificate.
Yes.
Which means that we're liable, once we take that paper, to take care of it, to, shred it properly.
Right.
But also, get that and recycle it. So when we get it, that means we've destroyed it and that we're sending it,
Yeah.
to be recycled.
We
So-
enjoy it when we get our annual report. Like Nina
Yeah.
dropped it off last year, and it's amazing when you see, because our office at that time probably had 7 employees, and now I think we're up to total of us. There's probably 14 of us out of the office now, so it'll be exciting to see what this year is. Are you looking to gain more customers?
We always are, and I think the nice thing that we looked at, initially was to, how could we grow the company? And there's a lot of ways, I guess, to say that, but we wanted to grow the company in a nice way, keeping all the people here that are local. We all have, everybody here that we have employed with us, they live here in Pueblo, they work here. But we also wanted to make sure that we weren't gonna grow crazy, where, it would be a financial burden, number one, but number two, two of the things that, we always talk about, and what I always talk about is, we're not gonna be the cheapest, but we are gonna have the best customer service.
Right.
We do a customer survey on every customer over a certain number, because if we had to do one on every single one, it would be kind of hard to do. But, we've done surveys pretty much one out of every 3 customers we actually survey, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And we find that we can beat our competition hands down by just answering the phone every day, and 2, being able to get to them in a very timely manner, short period of time. Our customers, like I said, our competition typically doesn't have someone answering the phones.
Right.
One. Number 2, they don't generally have, the ability to turn around or do, pick up somebody's
Something
paper
quick.
very quick. And we found those 2 things, if we could do those well, that we would continue to get customers. We've probably grown, depending on, now it's a little harder to grow percentage-wise, but we probably add, I was thinking when we first started out, we had 0 customers. Now we have over 3,500.
Wow.
So, and every year we continue to get more. But we've tried to grow at a nice rate where it's good financially for us, but also we can still do the things that we want to do with our customers.
Right. If you lose the customer service, you always lose the
Well,
business.
and being in the real estate business, both of us, we know if you have good customer service, you're gonna get those customers and then their friends.
Right.
And we probably, and again, rough numbers, but probably 25% of our business is referrals.
Great.
So we're almost, basically, almost a third of our business is from referrals.
Yeah,
So
the
that-
best type of business.
That helps, and they're easy, in
Yeah.
terms of from a business standpoint.
Right, because they already have experience, that whoever's referring them has an experience with you, and obviously it's been a positive experience, otherwise people don't usually shoot your name out. So when you say that you're open to getting new customers, who would they call? Who would they contact?
Well, it's easy. Just call our main number, which is 719-544-5460, or mobilerecordshredder.com.
Great. If it's just a single consumer, let's say it's tax season and I want to get rid of my taxes from 8 years ago, their option is that they could actually come to your location.
Yes, and that's one of the things that we recognized, I wouldn't say fairly early on, but there are a lot of people that don't really know where to go or what to do, and especially individuals. We are focused on commercial, but we also have, not just in Pueblo, but we do here in our warehouse, we have hours for people that come in for 1 box. I mean, some of our customers here might bring in 1 little box, 1 shoe box, 1 little larger box, but we allow them to come here because we can shred that here on site in our warehouse.
That's
We also have locations in other areas that they can do that as well. So we've partnered with other businesses, and again, this may not be, here in Pueblo, but like in Canyon City, up in Springs, Lamar, Alamosa. So we've kind of opened that up.
Oh, that's great.
For mostly consumers or individuals, because they don't usually, we can come to their house, but with one of our trucks, there's a minimum charge.
Right.
And you really should have like 400 or 500 pounds in order to make it financially worthwhile for that
Right.
customer. That happens, but usually what we do, we just tell people, and we're not trying to make every last penny, although we are in this business to make money. If someone, we try to educate people. I still say there's plenty of room for growth in this industry. we've been growing every year since 2004, that there's plenty of room in this industry for people to understand that there's a lot of, identity theft out there. We've got some other types of programs for businesses now. There's some state statutes that come into play last year that require businesses to report security breaches.
Right.
So there's kind of things like that are happening in our world, and I don't think a lot of people understand or maybe know this, but the number one enhancer of the drug trade is stealing someone's identity. In other words, and we deal a lot with like Crime Stoppers and some of the local enforcement agencies to get the message out, but basically the drug trade is the biggest beneficiary of security breaches in the United States.
Wow, I wouldn't have known that.
That's where we encourage individuals. We don't care if it's one little shoebox or one little box or whatever you have, get it to us and we'll take care of it for you.
Well, and I tell a lot of our consumers when it's an estate, because they honestly don't know what to do with the information, is I tell them just have it shredded, because you don't know, they don't want to go through every bill or every statement or whatever they have in their family's home. So I just tell them, put it all in a box, take it down to mobile shredders, they'll take care of it for you, and then you don't have to worry about what are you going to do with it. You're going to put it in storage for how many years? So I love the idea that you can, in other locations, you can actually drop off your 1 or 2 boxes. Can they find that on your website?
Yes.
Oh, great.
Yeah, we have locations, drop-off locations on our website.
Terrific.
Just to explain a little further, but our website has all the detail that anyone would need, whether it's a commercial request, like a business request, or if it's someplace they need to know where to go, or if they need information about the law. One thing a lot of people don't realize, and like I said, we try to educate as many people as we can, that any business, and this is a federal law and a state law, any business has to properly destroy anybody's, I guess I would say, confidential records.
Right.
All it has to be is a social security number, birth date, any information, checking account.
Right.
That has to be destroyed. We'd love to have you come here to have it shredded. The only other option, really, you have is to burn it. So you have incineration or shredding. And people just, a lot of times, as we know, throw them out in the dumpster. That's not going to help you.
Yeah.
And there's so many instances of companies that have lost and been sued for getting out, whatever, someone's confidential information.
Right, absolutely.
So it is more so now, and there's phone type situations with your cell phone. I've heard of stories years ago where a lady, she went to visit her young son and had a baby, and they went to Texas, and she was from Colorado. She went down there, left her cell phone at a mall. They were down playing with a kid or whatever,
Right.
for whatever reason. Left her cell phone, like in the play area or whatever.
Right.
Someone took that cell phone. By the time she got back, which is like on a Saturday, she got back in Fort Collins. I think she's from Fort Collins. On a Monday, her whole financial information was stolen from her house, and she lost like $150,000 because she didn't have it in an insured bank. She had it in like a money market.
Right.
They were able to find her address, get to her house, take all her mail out of her mailbox, and for whatever reason, got in and got all her financial information, and she was broke
Wow.
in 2 days.
It's-
Now, that's an extreme example.
Right.
But it's not very far off with
Well,
a lot of
so
people.
it's sad because that's where our society's headed. It's unfortunate, but you really need to protect people's information. I mean, even things when we do contracts that maybe we had to rewrite or something, or it was a multiple offer situation and their offer didn't get accepted. We shred all of that because we don't want to keep it. We try and keep as little paper as we
Right.
possibly can, because you don't want that information hanging out there. So when they drop something off at your location, so tell me the price of like just one box. What
$5.
Okay, $5. Can't beat that, right?
And that's usually up to about 20 pounds or so. You know, if you think about a banker's box, everybody seems to know what that is. A
Right.
small banker's box is $5, and a big banker box is $10.
Right.
So it's very minimal.
Cheaper than Starbucks coffee.
Well, and if you go to some other areas, then it's competition, not very much from our perspective. But if you can go to like a Staples or whatever, I think they charge $1 a page.
Wow. Holy
So,
smokes.
I mean, for someone just to get rid of a box or two, come here, it's a lot easier, and we take it, and we do, it takes us, sometimes it might be, we have to shred it within 3 days. So we will shred it here. It may not be right then
Right in
and
front of
there.
you.
But if they want that to happen, we can, if we have someone here, we can make that happen.
Great.
But the idea is it does get certified to them that we will destroy it. And
Great.
we're under some national audit. We have the NAID, they call it, but it's almost like the Realtors Association.
Right.
We have very stringent things that we
Guidelines.
have to go by, and they audit us every year. But basically, our warehouse, our service, all that stuff is all audited, so we have to, adhere to certain standards.
Right.
And now we can do, we actually do hard drives, so we can actually shred people's hard drives.
Oh, great. That's great to know.
Which a
And
lot
what-
of people don't know, that there's hard drives, that you get rid of a computer, that hard drive has
That's
all your information.
Yes. How much does that run?
That's usually $10 for one hard drive.
Great. So they
Yeah.
can just bring their computer down here and you'll.
Yep, we'll take it apart for them. We'll take care of it for them here. What we do with that is we actually recycle that too. So what we do is we take the hard drive and shred it,
Shred it.
and then we take the tower and bring it over to Southern Colorado Recycling, and they take that, and so that part gets recycled
That's
as well.
great. That's
Yeah.
awesome. What does it run monthly for like a small business like me?
We have two different types, and again, a good question, but primarily for just a console, which is typically it's about 70 to 100 pounds. It kind of varies a little bit, but basically that would cost you $39 a month.
A month. Yeah.
Right, and I will also tell people that you are not insured under a general liability policy for someone's, documents getting out in your office or whatever. Sometimes people think, well, if something happens, my insurance will cover me. Does not happen.
Right.
That's a specific coverage. Now, you can get that, and that probably costs you anywhere from $800 to $1,000 a year.
A year.
For that added rider or whatever you want
Right.
to call it. But yeah, basically, and if it could be where you have multiple locations, you might get a little bit better deal than that if you have more than one location. But typically, the first one is $39 a month, and then the second one might be half of that if you have two.
So Joe, tell us how you came up with your name.
That's a good question.
Thanks.
No, but basically, it's Mobile Record Shredders, and the acronym is MRS. And we started that because our wives were going to be the predominant owners of the company, and in fact, that was a key in some of our contracts that we were able to procure through the federal government and through the state government, because it was a woman-owned company. But I've always liked that fact that one is the acronym seemed to fit.
Right.
But in reality, they own 51% of the company.
It's the truth.
So I'm just a mere peon working for women.
Good. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Girls rule.
Yeah. There you go.
That's
That's how
amazing.
we did it.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
That's a great
Yeah,
story.
it is.
So Joe, how many employees do you employ right now throughout Colorado? You can break it down to Pueblo and then other
No,
parts.
everybody actually is based here in Pueblo.
Great.
So we have 50 employees.
Wow. So that's your truck drivers and everybody
Yeah,
who's doing all
we
that?
have, I think, and again, it's what I would call sales and office staff. We have 5, and then 10 is involved. 10 are involved in the trucking and the warehouse and the shredding part and
Wow.
all that stuff. So that's kind of how it's broken
You're
out.
very efficient.
But yeah, it's and again, it's one of them things that you learn a lot while when you start out, when you don't know anything about shredding.
Right.
But I think we were always, I think, pretty smart about finding other people that knew how to do that. I want to mention that because I'm a small business owner. You're a small business owner. When you first start out, there's a lot of things that can happen.
Right.
Having experience is very helpful. Both myself and Lawrence had our own businesses for a long time. We knew the financial part of it. So I think I always tell people, if you're a small business and you're trying to get started, a startup or whatever, get some financial help if you don't have the experience. We sell our services based on pennies per pound.
Right.
It's not like, a commission of
Right.
whatever, but it's really where I think small businesses, I've been involved with PCC and some of the smaller, groups around town about helping small business. But I think a lot of times we overlook the fact of how much financing or financial, knowledge helps. But also, if you don't have the knowledge, go find it.
Ask
Yeah,
the question.
I am not afraid to take someone else's ideas, and it was I go back to the original 2 guys. If you had met them, they're a little bit different, when you first met them. But I'm thinking these guys knew exactly what they were doing and how to do it. And if we didn't have that, I think, initial meeting with them, I think, I'm not sure we would have stayed with it, to be honest with you. But we were able to get to them and had the confidence to talk to them and have them give us the information we needed. And I think sometimes people think, well, I know how to do this
Right.
because I can do this.
Yes.
And you don't really know.
Right.
And if you don't know, and you try to go off into the world and spend, for us, $250,000 on a truck, that's a big investment.
There's a lot of money to lose.
There's
And
a lot of money to lose.
That's what I always tell people. If you don't know, just ask, because most people in general want to help you. They want to see you succeed. And I always tell people, don't reinvent the wheel. I mean, you didn't get where you're at overnight. I didn't get to where I'm at overnight. It's really experience.
Yeah.
Every deal
Well,
is another experience, just like with you.
In our partnership, I never thought, and I've been in partnerships in my land business, but sometimes the partnership has to be, a good one as well.
Right.
And everybody brings something different to the table. In our case, Lawrence had been a businessman and he had a lot of financial capability. I was a businessman and had a lot of financial capability. I did a lot on the marketing side, so I knew the marketing thing. Lawrence had a lot of general knowledge, but also he probably has now 35 people working for him. So we were able to bring those kind of different assets to the table, and our wives were naturally, in my mind, naturally born salespeople.
Right.
And so they did all the selling, and we kind of said, you guys go do this, and we'll figure out how to do the rest of it.
Right.
And I think sometimes you have to have that, the right partnership.
Right.
And I probably wouldn't say that because my land guy partner we were together 35 years. I mean, I've had long-term partnerships.
Right.
Luckily, they've all worked out.
Yes.
But I know a lot of partnerships, a lot of businesses haven't.
Mhm.
And so going in, I had a lot of confidence in my partner, and I think he had a lot of confidence in me. But then we went out and figured out we needed to talk to people, and that they were and they literally, we used to, for the first, I think, 3 or 4 years, I was on a Friday or Monday morning call. They had a nationwide sales call,
Right.
a sales management call
Mhm.
for any shredding company that wanted to be on the call. Now, you had to pay a little money for it.
Right.
But we found out what was going on in Washington, we found out what was going on in Texas, and at that point in 2004, the shredding industry was very, very, I didn't know anything about it. It had been kind of just starting.
Right.
So we started literally in the infancy in terms of a commercial operation, making it worth people's while. There was other, companies, there was a company out in Pueblo West, I think, that was doing recycling, but it wasn't paper recycling.
Right.
So it was starting out, it was like, there wasn't a lot of knowledge, but there was a lot of people that knew what they wanted to do. And so that was helpful.
I think too, in that kind of things changed, I would say during the fall, when our market changed, that people were more, I would say, desperate. So a lot of times the information out there, unfortunately, it probably brought the worst out in people, but that was easy access, like you said. You could go into a file basically and have people's account information,
Oh,
their, their home address, sometimes their driver's license, things like that, just sitting in an office, because it really wasn't that popular to shred all of their documentation then.
Absolutely.
Now, you wouldn't even think of not shredding it.
I remember I can't remember, a few years back, the superintendent of schools, Maggie Lopez, I'll never forget the conversation, and had said to, because they were going through their troubles, and they probably still have troubles now, but District 60 was going through a lot of trouble.
Right.
And when she had said, we would like to have businesses help us any way they can, any local business, And she was reaching out to the business community, which I thought was actually very good of her. And I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe we should just figure out how to do all the shredding for the schools. Now, District 60, and we now do District 70 as well, but District 60 had 35 schools.
Wow.
And so I said, we got to try to figure out, what can we do to help? So I offered, I said, and I kind of threw it out there, and I might not even told Lawrence or asked him, but I said, why don't we do the shredding for all the schools, and we won't charge you. Now, you would think that it was really difficult for them to understand, and I think one of the first comments, and they got me in touch with one of the people at the procurement department, I guess you call it. They said, well, we don't do enough paper. we don't have enough paper to make it worth anybody's while.
Wow.
And I first said to myself, well, why don't you let me handle, I can maybe go out and look.
Yeah.
And I just, again, there was nobody doing it, right?
Right.
And this was in probably, and I'm just guessing, it was somewhere around 2010 or 12,
Mhm.
but in that range. And I had all I could do, and then they sent me this contract that was like 80,000 pages long. And I'm like, guys, look, we don't, I deal with a lot of governments, and I said, all I want to tell you is that it won't cost you a penny.
Right.
So we figured it out, and what we did was we put a bin, now this is bigger than the console,
Right.
but a 250-pound big old blue bin in every single school, 35 schools. And of course, when we first started, there wasn't too much going into those bins, right? Now, I think not only do we do it at least once a week, we may do it like twice a week in some cases. So that goes to show you, once people started realizing that maybe they should put some paper in there. Now,
Right.
some of it in the schools, they would throw it into the garbage, right? So they didn't quite know how much they had, but now and they love the fact now, because it's all recyclable, we go out to the schools once a year sometimes, go to one of the middle schools and show them what we're doing.
That's amazing.
And the reason is because way back when I first, and again, I just kind of went out on a limb, and I knew it was going to probably cost us a lot of money
Yes.
initially, so I wasn't sure. And I'll be honest, so sometimes you got to fly by the seat of your pants, but I did want to make a point that, there is something that they could benefit from. And now, they're full all the time.
Yeah.
So in a very short period of time, they realized that's how much paper they were probably sending into the landfill.
landfill.
So
Yeah.
now they don't, it's recycled, they feel good about it, and it doesn't cost, we do it for free.
That's
And there is an
amazing.
overhead, we get some of that paper back through when we recycle it, but it's not anywhere near probably what it costs us to do
Right.
it. But it's something to do for the community, but it's also, they realize that they probably should be doing this,
Right.
and now that works.
Yeah.
So, but some of those things you just don't know until you start doing them.
Right. Well,
So,
thank you, because
yeah.
a lot of people, we know, don't donate back to their communities, and that's really important, I think, to show our children that it's just not all about you, but it's actually about giving back to other people. That should be our focus, so we appreciate that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking the time to sit down with us today,
Yeah,
and we
thanks
look forward
Thanks for
to
coming in.
our future business.
I've never been interviewed by another local business, but
Great.
that's good.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching. If you want to see more local businesses highlighted, just give us a follow on our page and see what's coming next. Thanks for watching.